to the Comics Coffee Metal Podcast, episode 42. Hello everyone, welcome to the Comics Coffee Metal Podcast. I am your host, Don Cardenas. I am currently thanking the podcast gods that the temperature around here dipped a little bit because we got pretty hot here for the past few days, and recording in the studio here, it's kind of a hot box in the summertime, and it's just before having the AC in and all that, and whenever I have to record, I have to like cool down the room as much as possible and then shut everything off so it's nice and quiet as possible to get the recording in. So yeah, there's a little bit of relief there that I'm not just pouring sweat trying to get this recording all done and out to you guys. So yeah, just a small blessing here. Last week I had talked about looking into, or just kind of mulling over the idea of sponsorships, and lo and behold, we have our first official sponsorship. We'll be talking about that shortly, but I was really glad to hear from this person about a sponsorship. And I am really excited about what we came up with to, make it worth everybody's while. So, alright, let's get to our comic recommendation. This week I have the slightly couple years old book Lake of Fire from Image Comics. Lake of Fire was created by Nathan Fairbairn and Matt Smith, with story by Nathan Fairbairn with Jason Kapalka. And I read this story, a few years ago, and I, have known Nathan's work as a colorist, and just, chatting with him on Twitter over the years. And Nathan's an amazing colorist, like one of the best in the business. And when I first read the story, I was kind of floored with like, oh, great, he's an amazing writer too. And on top of that, he's also a great letterer. He pulled like triple duty on this book. He's, just killing it on all levels. And that is so much to say about that book, but then you throw in the amazing art of Matt Smith, and I'm just surprised this book has not been just, praised for years and years and years and years. It's a really fun, really cool book. It's essentially Crusaders versus aliens, and that to me sounds a hell of a lot more interesting than 99% of the books out there right now. It stars a couple main characters, a Hugh, Theo, and a Sir Mondragon, who are sent to a small town on a fake mission by Lord Montfort, and in turn they find a town ravaged by devils, which turn out to be aliens, and it gets really crazy, really awesome, really gory, really bloody. And it really feels like, not to compare everything to like movies and all that, because comics are entirely different medium and all that said, just it reminds me a lot of those 80s movies, or even some 90s movies or movies today, where it kind of mashes up genres, but and it's a really cool idea, and it's presented really interesting and really well done in terms of design work, but it also has like unexpected amounts of like heart and characterization that this makes it go way deeper than you would normally expect something like this to go. It really reminded me of like Aliens, where you kind of have the bit of the ragtag team, and things don't go well, and you kind of have to choose a stand and fight or flee. And yeah, again, I'm not trying to make this seem like, oh, this would be an awesome movie. First of all, like, I would pay 15 times to see this in the theater. This is just, I love sword and sorcery stuff. I love, just gritty, medieval type stuff, and then throwing some great sci-fi action on top of that. It's amazing. Like, I wish we could show this book to John Carpenter back in the 80s and just have him come and just kill it, and just make this into an adaptation and just absolutely blow all our minds. As I was saying earlier, Nathan is incredibly talented, and everything he does on this is just great. Like, even the lettering is fantastic. There's I didn't know he lettered the book. I knew he wrote it. I knew he probably colored it because he's an amazing colorist. but the lettering, it's one of those things where bad lettering can take you out of a comic book, great lettering can elevate a book. And his choices of like the blocky word balloons and some of the stylistic choices with some of the text and all that later on, it's fantastic. It really is. And again, having Matt Smith on art, that gets you to third base. And but Nathan already is like, he's made it a grand slam with everything he did. Now, Matt's art is, to me, it's reminiscent of like Guy Davis, Mike Mignola, Jeff Smith, Brian Hurt. But it's very expressive and organic while remaining very clean and character driven. Matt is excellent at pacing and panel design and just the way he just breaks up certain images with panels and telling the story. It just sucks you in so much. And yeah, Matt's the kind of guy who, like, everything he draws seems like so effortless and amazing. It just frustrates you so much because even though my brain does not work that way, I'm like, I wish I could draw like this. I wish I could think like this. So yeah, I like the art a little bit, I guess. So yeah, I decided to kind of refresh my memory of this for a specific reason, and yeah, it's just an amazing book. The trade paperback is out everywhere. It's on Amazon, it's on Comixology. Go to your local LCS. I'm sure they can order a copy if they don't have it. Lake of Fire, amazing book. You would not be disappointed. So if you've listened to this show for any length period of time, you've probably heard me talk about Nosk of the Void, the Hollow Knight-inspired black metal album by artist and musician Chuck Beebe. If you haven't heard me talk about that or missed the episode where I heavily recommended it, here's a quick taste. Awesome, isn't it? So Chuck contacted me and wanted to help the show. He heard I was looking for sponsors, and he's like, hey, I want in. So, after some chatting, we decided, we have this great idea. So here's what we're going to do for you guys. He is offering up 15 codes to download the album from Bandcamp for free. There are just 3 simple things to do in order to get your code. 1. Follow @ChuckBB and @Comics Coffee Metal on Twitter. That's @ChuckBB. You spell it like it sounds. And @CMX Coffee Metal on Twitter. Yeah, I couldn't fit the whole comics on there, sorry. So do that. Follow both of those accounts. Send a DM proof, like screenshot or whatever, to @Comics Coffee Metal. Then retweet this current episode's post on Twitter. And I will reply to you with a link and a code to go get the album for free. It's a great album. Chuck is an amazing talent, and this is a super easy way to get some free awesomeness. Again, follow @ChuckBB and @Comics Coffee Metal on Twitter. Send a DM proof that you're following both accounts to Comics Coffee Metal. Retweet this episode's post. And if you're one of the first 15 to do so, you get a link and a free code to download the album. Boom, done. Alright, so my music recommendation this week is the new EP Z2 from The Devil Wears Prada. Now, The Devil Wears Prada is a band that I've been aware of for well over a decade, I guess. But metalcore was never a thing I really got into. I'm only recently really starting to dig any of that stuff and to like really kind of get into it. I've liked metalcore adjacent or a lot of those influences in certain bands, but this band in of itself I've just never fully gotten into. I last made an effort to get into them around the time of the first Zombie release, and that was mainly because Kevin Mellon, former guest and bud, is well, he drew the comic for it. So yeah, once I saw him doing that, I'm like, oh, maybe let me try to give this band a shot, and it just wasn't for me at the time. After talking with Kevin a little bit, I guess he's friends with some of the guys in the band, and they came up in conversation, and I'm like, you know what? I just saw that they just dropped another EP. Let me give these guys another shot, and I am super glad I did. Now, I know this band has gone through some changes. Just a quick look on the Wikipedia, they've had some trouble keeping members. I mean, they've had a few, full-time, long-standing members, but yeah, they've recently had some pretty bigger shakeups in the past 10 years or so. And I'm guessing that there's been a lot of stylistic changes based on some of the responses online, searching and all that. And I don't know, I plan on going back, and Kevin kind of gave me a roadmap to kind of navigate, because he knows my tastes and my preferences. And so yeah, I think I'm going to dig a little bit more into them. But what they're doing right now, I'm really digging it. It's very groovy, it's very aggressive, but it's also very impassioned, and it reminds me a lot of Gojira with the vocals. Just kind of, yeah, they're screaming, but there's a lot of emotion behind it. It's not just atonal growling and all that. The production on this EP is just absolutely amazing. The guitar tones, and the drums, and the bass tone are just stellar all around. It sounds just like you're getting pummeled, but then they also have a few like electronic elements popping in here and there, and they're definitely not afraid to get melodic, which I'm thinking, based on some of the stuff I've heard before and some of the more newer stuff, is probably where the division was happening with a lot of people. Seeing a lot of comments how they can't go, they're not heavy anymore, and judging by this EP, they're out to prove some people very, very wrong. So yeah, The Devil Wears Prada, Z2. I am breaking the streak of preferring the first song. I actually prefer the second song off the album, and that is Forlorn. That is just a killer track. It's got all the stuff I dig about what they're doing in there, and if you know my taste and you hear this track, you're gonna know, like, yeah, this is the one Don likes. This is definitely the one Don likes the most. But yeah, there's plenty of other great tracks on there. Nora is a standout, and Termination is also a really killer track. But yeah, I'm really impressed by this. Not that I was expecting not to be impressed. I've always respected them as a band. Just they were never my cup of tea. But it kind of seems I'm enjoying them now. So I'm looking forward to kind of finding my way back, and hopefully enjoying a lot more of their output. So yeah, Devil Wears Prada, Z2, song is Forlorn. Alright, on to my guest. This week we have the ultra-talented Bobby Torres of Brightbox Recording. Bobby's YouTube tutorials have been incredibly helpful to me in mixing my own music, and he has a very straightforward way of just explaining things, and for a dummy like me who kind of needs things beaten over his head with a sledgehammer to get through sometimes, it's been incredibly helpful. I follow a lot of music producer type people on YouTube and all that, and while a lot of them have a lot of great info and stuff to share, I can probably say that I've put into practice and applied the most stuff from Bobby. He likes to keep things simple, and I'm a simple man. I have a tendency to go down rabbit holes with things and make things overly complicated for myself. So coming across his channel was a great thing, and I love the aesthetic of his channel. It's he loves old VHS tapes and stuff like that, and he's as we find out he's a bit of a nerd, just like all of us. And it was just an absolute blast talking to him, and we shared a lot of musical and I guess cultural milestones. So it was really great to kind of have that instant connection there with him when having this chat. And yeah, Bobby's just a great dude. He's definitely going to be back on the show. We barely scratched the surface of our nerdery together. So, look for him come October. He has a great horror aesthetic with his studio and Frightbox recording and all that. And he's going to be definitely bringing in some great October Halloween fun when we hook back up. It's great. It's a great chat with Bobby. His YouTube channel is Frightbox Recording. Again, if you're interested in the slightest about recording your own guitars and drums or whatever, super simple, super easy. He's very straightforward, and they're just well done videos too. So, but enough selling on, I guess. Let's get to the man himself. So let's go. Bobby Torres, Frightbox Recording. So I've been interviewing a lot of comic book creators over the past 40 plus episodes, and just recently I started branching out and trying to contact some YouTube metal creators that have really piqued my interest, and I've actually learned a lot from. And I'm very thankful that everyone's been positively responding to coming on the show, and you were one of the first ones that I'm like, I want to get this guy on the show. I love his whole deal. I've learned a ton watching your videos for production stuff, and there's this so much like cool stuff that you've done, and I loved a lot of your mixes and all that. But before we get into any of that, Bobby Torres, I need to ask you, Comics Coffee Metal, what are you digging right now?
Well, I can tell you what I'm really looking forward to. I don't know if it's released yet, but when I saw this, I was just completely, overflowing with nostalgia. I just found out that they're going to be printing Batman 89, like a comic series. I think that's that's in the universe of Burton's Batman.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, oh my God, I will read that thing, from front cover to back, and any other ones that come out after that.
It's got a fantastic team attached to it. Joe Quinones is doing the art, and he is just stellar. Like, I think he actually kind of put it out there on the social media, pitched it a few years ago.
Really?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what happened. And just, they've done Batman 66. And they've had basically that version, the Adam West Batman. They've had a few collections of that. And yeah, and they're also doing Superman 79, I think.
Oh wow, that's cool.
And a guy I know, Wilfredo Torres, he's doing the art on that, and it's just the perfect people for both. But that's awesome. I like Batman, and I have I like it enough of the comics and all that. But this one was really maybe I need to buy Batman again, this particular one in general.
I am so pumped. Now, my question is, I don't know if you would know this, is it going to be only within the universe of Batman 89, or is Batman Returns part of the canon that this will be continuing? Or is it not, or have they not released that information yet?
I don't think they've gotten that far yet. I haven't seen anything about that. They announced it sometime in December, I want to say.
Okay. Yeah, it was recent. It was somewhat recent when I saw the cover art, but it looks badass, man. It looks cool.
I would think that they would keep Returns canon, this is the Tim Burton era of it.
Yeah.
And I don't know if Batman Forever or Batman and Robin's going to be applicable.
Yeah. See, that's what's tricky, is because technically, I've had long conversations. I'm a huge Batman nerd, by the way, so I can go on and on about this. But, I have had long conversations with some of my friends who are also Batman nerds, and it's would Batman Forever and Batman and Robin be canon in the timeline of Batman Returns and the original Batman 89? Because technically, it's some of the same actors, like Commissioner Gordon, also Alfred, and obviously Harvey Dent was recast with what's his face in Batman Forever. Can't remember his name right now. Men in Black actor. I'm
Tommy Lee
drawing a
Jones.
blank. Tommy Lee Jones, yes. And and Burton had his whole script, had a whole vision for his third Batman, which I think was called Batman Continues, actually. Which is not an exciting name, but dude, I wish that was made.
Actually, I just looked it up because I knew where to look. It is further down the line from Batman Returns.
Awesome.
Catwoman will be coming back, and you're gonna get the Billy D. Williams Two-Face.
Dude, that's exactly where I was going next. Is that I've always, ever since I was a kid, that's what I always wanted to see was him as. I felt like he would have been a great Two-Face. Well, we saw him as Harvey Dent in his earlier, in the first movie, but it would have been so awesome to see that fully developed.
It's kind of bogus. They like paid him to not be Two-Face.
Yeah, dude, also
that was wrong.
Yeah, and what's his name from Scary Movie was paid to be Robin and never got to be Robin.
Marlon Wayans. Yeah. There will be a Robin. Like, they haven't said though if it's going to be like going that route as well.
Oh, it's probably, it has to be.
I hope so.
I mean, I would be shocked if it wasn't, only because that was the original vision. I mean, maybe not. I don't know, but they even had. I don't know if you've ever seen the concept art of that Robin that they had. It was interesting.
No, I can't say I have. I think my interest like in the Batman '89 fell real hard after Batman Returns.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think I watched forever. I saw Batman and Robin, and they were fine for what they were. But I think when I look back and I'm like, oh, let me find concept art and stuff, I just get sucked into the whole of the Tim Burton, Nicolas Cage, Superman Lives.
Yes. Dude, I would have killed to have seen that also.
When I first heard of like the rumblings of that, reading it in like Wizard magazine and all the stuff that's going on and like, oh, that's going to happen. I'm like, no, this is a terrible idea. But now as an adult, I'm like, man, I wish they did this. This would have been so damn crazy. Like, I really wish they would have, please, I wish they would still just go and do it. Who cares? Like, de-age, I don't care. You got the technology. Like, let's just do it. Just do it. Just give the world what it needs. Nicolas Cage, Superman.
Speaking of that, did you see that 2-hour-long documentary on that?
No, what was it? I meant to watch it because I think I remember when it came out as a rental.
So
and I'm
good.
like, oh, I should rent that. But my lovely wife will sit through many of non interesting things for her that I present. Yeah. But I think I really broke that with when we went to go see Some Kind of Monster in the theater.
Oh man, you took her to that? She sat through that?
Yeah, God bless her. She sat.
Is she a Metallica fan?
She is, but not like not like I am. And also she's a fan of the music. She could care less.
About the people.
And so she got to hear Lars chomping on gum, like in like Dolby stereo, and I just knew because that's a thing for her. I'm just like, I'm so sorry, babe. I'm so sorry.
And you saw it in theaters?
Yeah. It was a very limited run. But yeah, my buddy and I were when we were in a band. I was super. Saint Anger was like the first Metallica album that I was a Metallica fan. That was new.
Okay.
Like I came in like I guess Garage Inc. counts.
Yeah.
But it doesn't
that was
really. It's
okay.
Covers,
Yeah.
But like also kind of funny. Like I think Garage Inc. is their best sounding album. And,
it's a good sounding album.
And
definitely.
I think obviously Saint Anger is Saint Anger, but but I remember. But yeah, I was just so pumped for the whole thing. Even though I'm a huge Jason Newsted fan, and I was, as much as I love Trujillo and as talented and great as he is, I'm like, well, this sucks.
I agree, man. I obviously he's a phenomenal bass player, but Newsted had a certain energy that just really was. I don't know. Cliff Burton is they each have their own thing, but I miss Newsted personally.
Yeah, the thing about Cliff was Cliff, but like Newsted was my guy. Like when I became a Metallica fan, I was 15, 16, so and that's right around the Live Shit Binge and Purge like era, and like I wore out those videos, wore out those DVDs, so in the year and a half in the life of and all that, and so Newsted was just that was my guy. I started playing bass. That's the first real bass I bought. I got a 2x2 headstock bass because that's what he played. Like I didn't even know the
wow.
brand.
So
Like I didn't even know. Yeah. I lucked into a really awesome bass, but I didn't even like know like I'm like this has the 2 tuners on each side like Jason does. Even though Jason doesn't play Ibanez basses at all.
Yeah. Right.
And now he plays like Sadowski basses and they're all like and they're very Fendery, but
yeah.
But yeah, I was a Newstead stan, as they would say.
Yeah.
So yeah, but
dude, because I was I guess I got into Metallica at 8. I was pretty young because I started playing guitar when I was 10.
Oh, wow.
And that was around the time when, I went from listening to what my parents were listening to like, listening to, started with like Nirvana. Then so I was always into like Kiss and things from the 70s. And like I said, then when grunge happened, obviously I was into Nirvana. But around that same time, I got into Metallica and Megadeth and all that. And that was before Load. So I was into the Live Shit, Binge and Purge and, all that stuff. Dude, I remember all my friends, we were so pumped when when Load was like announced, like they were coming out with a new record. Because that was before the internet even.
Yeah.
And I bought the single and it wasn't even on the radio yet. I bought the single for Until It Sleeps. And I'm like, okay, this is a cool ballad, right?
Yeah.
Dude, when we bought the album, we were so bummed out when Load came out. Like, I even remember hearing one of my friends got like the Metallica. I don't know if you remember, but they had like a certain new Metallica logo with like all of the M's. I think that created like a square.
Yeah. It was like a star, like a ninja star. I think it's the ninja star logo they call it. Yeah.
Exactly. Like the dude got the tattoo before he even heard Load.
I mean, it's still a killer. It's still a killer logo, though. I like that.
Oh, it is. But you know what's funny, man? Like at the time as a kid, I was really bumming because I wanted another Injustice or Puppets or whatever, what we all wanted at the time. But looking back, like I would kill for music to be like that now. You know what I'm saying? Like at least in the mainstream, obviously there's still killer music coming out all the time. But like looking back on it, now I'm nostalgic for Load, because so much time has passed.
Yeah, Load and Reload were my my entry. Actually, The Memory Remains was the first Metallica song that I'm like, oh, I like this,
and that's a great song.
And I was so like, my parents never really grew up listening to music. Like whatever music we had were like random CDs that Columbia House would like force upon my parents. So I just was kind of left to my own devices to find music, and once I heard Memory Remains, I'm like, oh, I like it. And I even asked one of my friends, like, what, like that sound the guitar makes, like that weird buzzing sound, what is that? And they're like, oh, that's distortion. And I'm like, oh
wow.
Like
that's awesome, man.
And I'm just like, this is so weird to me. And it shouldn't have been, but it was just like, and then all of a sudden I went from like 0 to 100 because I just, I went and I got Load and Reload and got the Black Album, and then, I think I didn't get Justice right away or Kill 'Em All. I think I got Ride and then Master and then Kill 'Em All, and then I think Justice was the last one I got. But I loved it all. Like it was all like Metallica was like my go-to listening to for everything, because like they have music for everything.
It's true.
If I wanted to, be hyped up and go, boom, I got, plenty of songs for that. If I'm just trying to chill or whatever, Load, Reload, here we go, So
what's your favorite Metallica record?
Oh, if I have to go overall, it might have to be Ride.
Oh, okay, you're a Ride guy. See, same here. Like, if I had to go overall, again, nostalgia has a huge influence on this. It would be it would be Puppets. Okay. But but how could you? I mean, they're all so amazing. Yeah. I mean, this is just my personal opinion. Ride, Master, Justice, and Black Album, like that's perfection. Like you can't. That's perfect. Like I wouldn't change anything about any of those albums. Me personally.
Even as much as I hate the bass not being in Justice, when I hear the remixes or whatever, I'm like, it just doesn't sound right.
I agree,
because the guitars sound like ass to me on Justice, but that's what they sound like.
Yeah.
And unless
I don't know, it works though for some reason. I don't know. Again,
in of itself, it works. When you add the bass to it, it's like, well, yeah, no wonder. Like, well, sound is whatever drama aside. Yeah, it doesn't sound right. Like it just Jason's, super hard picked poppy, poppy, glassy sound or whatever. that was amazing in Garage Days is like just completely, it feels completely out of place. I've seen a few people who've done like the, whole album covers with them playing the bass, and it mixes in a little bit better. But yeah, I have to say Ride, and it's mainly because it has the most amount of my favorite songs. Like Bells is my all-time favorite Metallica song.
Okay.
And not because it's, for some reason, just that song, like, I never get sick of it.
Yeah.
I can hear it 50,000 times, 50 variations live. I love it every time. And there's, I can't say that about like Sandman or, even Sad But True, even though those are great songs in of themselves. Yeah, I think Ride. And actually, this brings me up to something I did want to mention. So I was checking out some of your mixes and stuff like that and stuff you've worked on. And you worked with a band called Mainline.
Oh, yeah. I'm actually, it's crazy you mentioned it. I'm in the studio with them right now
awesome.
as we speak.
So they put out something early last year, and I was listening to it. I'm like, these guitar tones, to me, to my ears, it sounds like you captured Ride Master tones, but made them modern.
Dude, I'm really happy you say that, man, because that's what I grew up on, and that's what I'm always going for. Like I can only pull from what I'm influenced by. And the crazy thing is with this band is they're young. Like I think the oldest person in the band is 21. What? They're all between the ages. Yeah, they're really young, dude. They're between the ages 18 and 21. I was just talking to them about it in a few weeks. But they only listen to old stuff. They listen to stuff like you're 38, I'm 36. Like, I grew up with like Metallica, Pantera, Carcass, stuff like that. I didn't really grow up with Judas Priest and like Maiden. I mean, I like those bands, like respect them. Don't get me wrong, but I'm more, I grew up with the 90s metal and the late 80s metal or whatever. Dude, these kids love like, Thin Lizzy, Kiss, and dude, they're like hardcore fans. Like they know like every album, who engineered the album, who was the assistant on the album. Like they're not messing around.
Wow.
But what's interesting is, like I said, and I'm always telling my girlfriend this, I'm like, yeah, these guys are 19 or 20, but they only listen to old music. But anyway, the point of me saying that is that they have that sound built into them, like into their playing. So like when they come into the studio, I don't have to do anything really. I just have to just pull from my own influence. I'm really happy you said that, man, because that's the vibe that I get from it. But it's always hard to be objective to know how someone else is going to perceive it when they hear it. So hearing that from you is cool. I mean, that means mission accomplished.
Well, I was digging their songs, and now hearing you talk about them, like I think I'm officially a fan of these kids. This is awesome.
They're good, man. They're cool.
It's crazy to see the level of talent, but then you think about it, and it's like, well, Metallica was the same age when they probably put out Ride, so it's like, all right, well, I feel like shit, but that's fine.
Well, dude, sometimes I say to myself, like the most random things. I'm like, wow, I'm getting close to the age that Metallica was, like right before they did Saint Anger. I'm not as old yet, but like we're getting there. Yeah. And it's like, what? How's that fucking possible?
Yeah,
like,
you realize
crazy.
Like, oh wow, they were like 30 when Black Album hit, and it's like, I think
younger.
Yeah, and you're thinking about like when you're that age, like how would you, so then I get even more respect for Jason Newsted for, making sandwiches and not spending his millions of dollars on fucking sandwiches.
Oh, dude, that shit was funny, man. And he had a point, honestly. Like when he said that, I'm like, yeah, dude, I agree with him.
Dude was smart with his money. Like, did you listen to the his solo project, the Newsted?
I have the Just Newsted.
Yeah,
the one that's called Just Newsted. The one I've heard certain live tracks from it. When it first came out, I think I listened to the whole record during a few workouts. It was cool. Yeah, and it was called like heavy metal music or something. Something like that. Yeah,
I was really stoked for that because I'm like, oh, this is perfect. He's fronting a band. It's good, solid heavy metal. Like, and then obviously, the industry was very different than when he was used to it, and he's like, I'm not gonna spend all my money trying to make this band happen when the money's just not there. So.
Yeah, dude. It's and plus it's got to be rough for someone like him who's used to like flying private jets and like having the top of the line tour bus where you have each guy's got their own bus to going back to all being crammed on a bus or taking a van.
Yeah,
I've never had to do that personally, but I can only imagine going from one stage to the other. But I don't know. I mean, the dude was in Metallica, so he could do whatever he wants.
Yeah,
I guess,
and now he's playing his as he calls it, his cowboy chords and doing his Jason Newsted band thing, and that's fine.
It's cool, man. Definitely, I respect that. 100%.
So I think we detracted a little bit from comics.
Oh yeah. Sorry, I can
No,
go on
no,
and
it's
on all
fine,
over
it's
stuff.
fine. But I know you're also a coffee fan. So what do you have a preferred brand of coffee that you like, a preferred way to make it, or is it just if it's black and hot, down it goes?
That's pretty much it, man. I'm not that picky. If it's black during the week, Monday through Friday, I'll have black coffee, and then Saturday. Well, actually, this is going to sound insane to any normal person listening, but like Saturday after my run, I'll have a little bit of. I'll spoil myself. I'll have some almond milk and some coconut sugar.
Okay.
And later on Saturday and on a Sunday, but I'm not too picky.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like whatever. Sometimes my girlfriend will, I don't know, she'll get something from like Trader Joe's or something. But like for me, like you were saying, if it's black and hot and has caffeine in it, and as long as it's decent and smells and tastes like coffee, I'm all in. But I went 1 month, 3 or 4 years ago. I don't even remember why I decided to like quit caffeine for the first time in my adult life.
Oh boy.
Never again. Never.
Did you get like bad
again.
migraines and like?
Dude, it was brutal. Like I didn't really get not migraines, but I just felt like complete crap for like 3 or 4 days. And then, by the end of the week, you kind of get, at least I did, I was kind of back to normal. And then, it's like nothing. But the thing with me is with coffee, it's not only about the caffeine boost, it's the ritual of it. Like I just love coffee,
I recently.
So I can't.
Go ahead.
Yeah, what were we saying?
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say like, I'll have people in the studio. They're like, "Oh, I don't drink coffee." I'm like, "How the hell do you not drink coffee?" Like, I don't get it. Like, to me, it's like part of my DNA at this point. And my parents are like that as well. Like, I'll go to visit my parents. It'll be 9:00 at night, and they're drinking coffee, watching TV. Mm-hmm. So,
same.
I've cut down a lot though. I've cut down a lot. When I was younger, in my early 20s, when I was crazy, like playing in bands and being at the studio 24/7. Dude, I'm not even joking. I would go to Starbucks multiple times a day.
Wow.
So like I would have a pot of coffee in the morning at my house and then go to Starbucks, go to the studio, come back home, maybe even make a pot of coffee again, and then go to Starbucks and go to record the second band at night. So, but I've cut back since then. Now I'm just 6, like in the actual coffee pot, it says 6 cups.
Yeah.
It's not 6 actual
it's like
cups,
maybe,
mugs.
Maybe like 2.5, 3 maybe.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's what I'll have a day.
Yeah.
And that's it. I try to stop it there.
Yeah.
How about you?
My wife and I, if people who've listened to the podcast already, I'm a big fan of Rootless Coffee. They're based out of Flint, Michigan, and their owner, one of the owners, and he's actually a drummer.
Oh wow!
For a band called the Swellers, and he's also fronted a band called Baggage. He's a really talented guy, and he's also a comic, up and coming comic book writer, and so
cool.
He kind of hit all the marks. I'm like, you roast
awesome.
coffee, but a buddy of mine did the art for one of their bags, so I'm like, and that's how I kind of came across them, and I'm like, oh, I like dark coffee, I like a darker roast. It's more kind of chocolatey notes or whatever. So I bought it. I'm like, wow, this is like amazing coffee. And then they have another one, a regular blend called Damn Fine Cup of Coffee, which is a Twin Peaks reference.
Oh, nice.
And even the art's a little Twin Peaks reference. It's really cool. But I bought that, and my wife and I were both like, this is like the best coffee we've ever had.
It's called Rootless Coffee?
Rootless Coffee, ROOTLESS.
I'll have to check it out.
Yeah, and they just, they're not sponsoring the show in any way, shape, or form. I wish they would. I've given them enough of my money over the past 6 months. I've probably, we were basically ordering like 5 pounds a month from them.
Oh wow!
And the cool thing is, like, even the roaster they use is like, it's what's the proper term? Basically, it's zero harm to the environment. The roaster they use.
Oh, nice.
So it's all completely, you feel good doing it.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, they have some really good other blends and all that. I'm not really much into what they have is good, but the Damn Fine Cup of Coffee, I'm like, this is the coffee I'm going to drink for the rest of my life. But
it's that good.
Yeah, usually I'll make a full pot, like just over like I'll overfill it, so it's like over 12 cups, but not like spilling out of the carafe or whatever.
Yeah.
and then my wife and I will split that, though I end up taking the majority of it because my cup's a little bit bigger.
Yeah, that's usually how it goes. That's how it goes. Do you just have it straight, or do you
I'm a cream and sugar guy. I'm a half and half in sugar.
Okay.
I've tried black coffee so much, and you don't sound crazy when you're like, you treat yourself to all that.
Yeah.
We're getting up there. We got to cut back on things.
Yeah.
I don't drink alcohol. I don't smoke. So basically, food items are my main vice.
Same here, man. Yeah, dude, that's my biggest crutch is like just cereal. Like I can't have cereal in the house. I'll just eat 5 boxes in a row. Like I have no control with food, man. So that's like you were saying. I'm kind of like you. I don't really drink. I don't smoke at all. So it's food.
Yeah,
food and sugar and things that are not good for you. I gotta. Yeah, it's hard to control.
Yeah, I used to be insane with the sugar, but I've cut it down drastically. But yeah, I'll have roughly 3 15-ounce cups.
Oh,
that's not terrible. Even but getting older, starting to get a little bit of heartburn now and then. So
really? Yeah.
I gotta cut down the coffee. Also, though, summer's coming, so it's easier to make sure I start drinking water earlier and all that, and all that. Like we were just talking before we started recording, it went from sweater weather to sweating weather. So
overnight.
Yeah. So but that's my coffee advice. But I'm not super picky, but I typically don't like Starbucks coffee. If we go to Starbucks, I'll get like a chai latte or something. It's like and now that's like a treat thing. But But there's like I'm not super picky, but I'm also like I can't do like gas station coffee or
oh god, dude, that's the worst. That's like when coffee has like it's just water. I hate that.
Burnt water.
Dude. Not a fan.
Yeah.
Not a fan. 7-Eleven coffee. Let me just say this. The only reason why I was ever addicted to Starbucks, 2 reasons. When I was in college, there was a drive-through. I always hated Starbucks. Mm-hmm. To me, it always tasted like liquid chicken or something, like liquid burnt chicken. That's what that coffee tasted like to me. Oh. And I always hated it. But there was a convenient drive-through when I went to school for audio right before the campus. So I guess like anything else, if you drink it enough times, you develop a taste for it or something. So I developed a taste for Starbucks. And then like I ended up becoming friends with some of the people that work there. So I would get it for free on top of that sometimes.
Okay.
So I was fully, and nowadays, especially with what's going on in the world, like I don't ever go through a drive through. So I haven't had Starbucks in forever. But yeah, that's how I got addicted and kind of developed a taste for it. But I know I was with you because at one point I always thought it just tasted like burnt liquid chicken. And I can't do the gas station coffee as well. So even though I'm not that picky, I have some standards with coffee. Some standards.
Yeah. I'm basically Dunkin' Donuts and up is like, okay, I'm good with that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And Dunkin' Donuts is hit or miss too.
Yeah. Well, for me, Dunkin' Donuts is always, because again, like I said, I like a little bit of cream and sugar, but
yeah.
Depending on the Dunkin' Donuts you go to, that can mean 2 very different things.
Oh, dude, like, night and day.
Yeah,
night and day.
There's one by my house that like I just can't. Whenever if we're getting like an iced coffee or something there, or just picking up something, I can't have them put cream and sugar in there. Like they just it's just inundated with sugar, and I'm like, I can't do this.
Yeah.
It's. If I'm saying it's too much, it's way too much. My wife, she can do black coffee or just like a little splash of milk or something and no sugar, and I'm too much of a pansy. I'm like, no, I need my little sweet, I need my little sugar, Well, I've started this new routine now where I get up like at 5 a.m. and I start working on my, my comics or whatever. And so that first cup of coffee has become even more of a demanding ritual.
Yeah. Definitely.
But yeah, so it's just I'm not super picky, but I'm a little picky. So we talked a bit about metal, but what's the stuff you're listening to now that's gotten you really excited?
I'm on a huge At the Gate, and I've always been an At the Gates fan. I don't know if you know who At the Gates are. They're like okay. So I've always been an At the Gates fan, and there's only so many times I can listen to those first 3 records, so. But what's weird is, dude, like they had their resurgence. They came back, for I think their return album came out in like 2015, 14. I don't know. It flew under the radar. I didn't check it out for some reason, dude. I don't know. Like I know there are mixed feelings out there. Like I think it's phenomenal. Like so that album I've been listening to. I've been listening to the one after that, Drinking for the Night Itself. Or Drinking from the Night Itself. I think it's one of those albums where the song has a slightly different title than the album. I don't know. I just stream it off YouTube, although I should buy it. And then the new single for their new record. So I'm a huge At the Gates fan. kick right now. And it also, I've been jamming the new Cannibal Corpse album.
Okay. Yeah, a few of my friends are really digging that album.
Oh, it's killer, dude. Killer. Have you listened to it?
See, I can do some death metal. I can go into, some real guttural. For some reason, Cannibal Corpse just hasn't gotten its hooks in me quite yet.
Well, it's interesting that you say that because I'm not a death metal. I'm more of a melodic death metal fan. Like growing up, I was never into like Deicide, a little bit of Morbid Angel. Like I was a fan of their album Domination, mainly because it was at Tower Records and I thought it looked cool and I bought it and I ended up kind of liking it. But I was never.
That's a criteria we had to go with sometimes.
Yeah, man, that's how it was back in the day. But I'm not a huge quote unquote real death metal fan. Like I'm not jamming like I said, old school Deicide or anything. But but with Cannibal Corpse, what's interesting is that they're actually really good songwriters. And especially on some of their newer records, the songs are put together in a way where even though it's death metal, it's really like catchy. Dude, check it out. I think you would end up liking it more than you would think.
Yeah, I should. It's sometimes I haven't done it in a long time, but sometimes for the podcast, I'll do something called Blind Spot, where I'll take a deep dive into a band I have no real attachment to, or like I've never really listened to Machine Head before, and I took a huge deep dive into every single Machine Head album, and now I'm a Machine Head fan.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, sometimes that's how it goes.
And same thing with like the Dio Sabbath. Even though I knew some of the Dio Sabbath stuff, I'm like, let me give it its fair shake because I'm an Ozzy Sabbath guy. But
yeah,
I've been trying to like think of the next one to do, and At the Gates was actually one of them, and so was Cannibal Corpse. I'm like, I want to do something more outside of my comfort zone. Not that it's totally out, because I do like some death metal. I bring up this band quite a bit, Flesh God Apocalypse, and
I always hear about them. I've never actually heard them.
They are amazing. They are just nice. You say you like melodic death, like there you go.
Yeah,
like it's fantastic stuff.
Nice.
And then there's they say it's death metal, but there's a band called Orbit Culture. They're kind of like if Gojira and Metallica, like they're like the angsty teenage son of Gojira and Metallica, which is amazing because those are two of my favorite bands of all time. So I'm like, all right, and they're like, they have their most recent album, Nisha. It sounds like the album right before the album they make that's like their masterpiece.
Oh, I got it.
So it's like you see all these elements they're doing, and you have lots of great songs, but you're seeing some real high peaks, and you're like, wow, if this is what they're building up to, like,
yeah,
they're gonna dominate. But
what are they called again?
Orbit Culture.
Orbit Culture. I gotta check them out, dude. Speaking of deep dives, you know what band I have never really listened to, and I gotta give a deep dive with Gojira.
Oh, yes, totally worth it.
I haven't. I couldn't tell you one Gojira song, and it's funny because a lot of the kids that I work with, a lot of the bands I record, they love Gojira. Don't they have a new plugin now or something?
Yes,
they have like a new guitar.
Yes, I ended up picking that one up because I love, like, I have Joe Duplantier, the guitar player, one of the guitar players and the singer. He has a custom DiMarzio pickup that I play a Telecaster too. So I'm like,
oh, sick.
So I'm like, all right. I got to get this thing because it just it's not super high output, but it's very aggressive,
Nice.
Nice. I was usually playing with like a dime bucker in my bridge, which is like one of the the hottest passive pickups you can have. But
yes, yeah.
But yeah, I'm like but once I saw that come out, I'm like, okay, I got to get that. And then the plugin, I'm like, that plugin's it's just awesome. The neural stuff is all awesome, and you have your favorite plugin. You like the TSE X50, I believe, right? That's kind of
dude, that's my go-to, and I've been trying to find something I like as much, and I'm pretty open-minded. Like right now, I have the STL Tones amp hub with the 5153 model, and it's cool. But the thing, not to go on a tangent here, but the thing I like about the X50 is that I don't know how the hell he coded it, or I don't develop plugins, so I don't know how they do these things, but it feels and reacts like an actual 5150. Okay. That's the thing. And dude, when I made my own custom impulse response pack, at the time, I would A/B because I had the cab set up with the mics, and I'd do the impulse response and capture it. I would A/B between the 5150, the real 5150 that I had at the studio, mic'd up. I'd reamp tracks through it. Then I'd reamp those tracks through the X50 with the impulse response that I made from the same cab with the same mic placement. I would literally intersplice the guitar performances on one track, crossfade them, and you can't even hear when it would shift between the plugin and the real amp at all.
It's crazy.
So, dude, I don't know how he did it. I'm sure there are other plugins that do just as good of a job, but I'm a simple guy and I like simplicity. And the other thing is a lot of the newer plugins just eat up so much CPU. I don't know what that's all about, dude.
Yeah.
I don't know what. So, yeah, that's the reason why I love that plugin.
I kind of, I have way too many plugins, first of all. Just in general, but like over the past 5 years where I've gotten back into playing music and starting to record myself and all that, I just started going through, I started with a suspiciously attained copy of PV's Revolver. That's
a great plugin, by the way.
It is amazing. Trying to be a good person, I did not keep it.
Yeah.
But I think
well, they don't make it anymore. I don't think. I think they stopped producing it.
I think you can still pick it up though. Or maybe suspicious means maybe the only way to get it now.
It's one of those things where I think you could pick it up, but it's like incompatible with like anything that's come out, any operating system that's been released in the past 5 years or something. It's one of those deals. Because when I thought the X50 wasn't going to work on my new rig, I looked for that because a lot of my a couple of my friends that do home recording use that plugin and their tones are always killer. And I was like, that ain't happening because I couldn't find a new one.
So then I bounced around. Like I had bought like the Easy Mix packs, and those are fine for just like messing around and like.
I agree.
But they are what they are. And then I think it was a Pete Cottrell video where he was doing the grind machine from Audio Assault.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And those were really good, but it was like they were still very amp sim soundy. Like if you're doing like thrash or whatever, like if you need something's a little trashy sounding, like perfect.
Yeah, they're cool.
But then I would do the free ones or like have the Emissary plugin or but yeah, once I decided to like, okay, let me invest a little bit, and I got a great deal on the Will Putney STL tones.
Oh, nice.
And I love that one. That one was great. That was my go-to for a long time because it has the diesel. It has the so if I wanted to sound like Metallica, I got the diesel.
Yeah.
It had the Mesa Triple Crown. So if you wanted that JCM 800y kind of sound,
cool.
And then they had what else did they? I don't know. It was just really good. But then and then just even more. But I had basically option paralysis at one point. And then I would see your videos a lot in my algorithm, and I'm surprised when I took a look the other day. Like your channel's not that old. You've been
it's relatively new. Yeah.
In the grander scheme of of things or channels I listen to, like you didn't really seem to start posting like super consistently and super often until like maybe 2 years ago, I think.
Yeah, I started. I'm trying to think. Actually, I think you're right. Exactly 2 years ago, I committed to doing one video a week.
Okay.
So spot on with that.
Yeah.
Before that, I did it was one of those things, man, where because I'm working with so many bands, and every band I work with, at least one guy's an aspiring engineer. At least one guy, usually. Dude, the one question people always ask over and over again is, how do you get a good guitar tone at home? Good guitar tone at home. It's the most common question people. And a lot of people think there's some magic trick, like, oh, you use this EQ technique or this EQ plugin. So what I decided to do, I guess 3 or 4 years ago almost now, I think it was like December of 2017, I just did a one-off video on mixing guitars. No plan, nothing. I just did it for the hell of it. And to this day, that's like my most popular video.
It is. It's over 100,000 views, I think, at this point.
Yeah, which I would have. I mean, dude, before that, I didn't even use social media. Like I was the most off the grid, the most. I just was never into all that stuff. The only way I was involved with YouTube was just watching YouTube. So But no, I did that video and I did a few others, and then I just decided to commit to doing one video a week, and then that's how it. Like you were saying, it's a relatively new channel, but I really was consistent 2 years ago, starting that forward.
Yeah, and it's like it's kind of crazy because a a couple weeks ago, I had on another YouTuber, Taylor Danley, and his channel is roughly the same age. And you guys both kind of like, you started a little bit, and then once you started being consistent, it's like you guys instantly like had well tailored, well done YouTube channels. Like you,
Well,
you guys,
thank you.
You know,
Yeah.
you everything, you know, is professional. You have your aesthetic, you have your niche,
Yeah.
of what you do.
Yep.
But yeah, your videos kept coming up and coming up, and I'm pretty sure I was subscribed at one point, but then I switched account. I went from like a personal account to like I started my own YouTube channel as a repository for things, but not to do things, but per se. But I'm like, oh well, if I'm using that one, let me make sure all my subs are on this one, and then but
Yeah.
regardless, I've been with you for a while now, but I had gone down so far with so many rabbit holes of just like plugins over plugins, EQs and EQs and EQs, and then like I kept seeing your videos, and you know, basically saying, keep it simple, stupid, like just do this. So, you know, I haven't really mentioned here, but you know, and it's nothing official, but it's pretty apparent. You know, I have some ADHD tendencies, and so you know, having all this tonal control with plugins and different plugins, and you know, and with so many of them being free and
Oh,
good,
yeah, dude.
like
And really good.
You just stop, and then like just which drum program, which drum sound, which, you know, I have Easy Drummer too, and it's like, which snare do I want, which this do I want, you know. Oh, I can break out the individual tracks. Okay, so I can go even further down that mixing rabbit hole, and like just getting so lost in the weeds with things. And then like once I started watching your videos, you're just like, no, keep it simple.
Awesome.
And then I started doing that, and I noticed a huge increase in like the general sound of my mixes. And
awesome.
You know, I'm all about, you know, I have no time for anything. So whenever I want to do a thing, I have to do it in the most efficient way possible. Otherwise, it doesn't get done.
Yeah.
Be it this podcast, be it art, be it music. So it's like, well, let me go from A to B. And actually, just recently, I was working on a song, and over the winter, I enlisted a friend, and we did a heavy metal version of that SNL Christmas song.
Oh, nice. That's awesome.
And to me, it was like, this is the best mix I've ever done.
Hell yeah.
And I'm like, okay, cool. So what would Rationale tell you? Okay, so next time you're doing a song in this style, you got your template, right?
Yeah.
You got your amp, you got your amp settings, you got everything. You're using the same equipment. You're the same person playing. So, okay, what did I do? The absolute opposite. So I'm working on this other song, and I'm like, I just can't get the mix. Everything sounds smushed and weird. I was using like Ozone as my like mastering thing, and it just wasn't sounding good. So, you know, once again, you know, just watch a couple of videos, I'm like, what am I doing? And then one of the best things I think from your videos that I've picked up is the high pass trick.
Okay.
And that's, you know, and that's, you know, I know we're getting a bit into the weeds, listeners, with recording stuff, and I'll try to remember to pop it into. But earlier when we're talking about impulse responses, that's basically a capturing the sound of an amp cabinet. So basically, almost like a filter you would put over to mimic or recreate the frequency. It captures like the overall frequency range or something like that through a microphone in the speaker, and it basically it helps it. You know, it's basically a simulated amp cabinet. So.
Yep.
Why they're called impulse responses and not just like cab sims, you know, universally, I don't know.
Well, they used to be called back in the Line 6 Spider or not Spider, Line 6 Pod days. They used to call them cab sims.
Yeah.
And then with plugins and the onset of like, you know, people making their own, you know, using amp sims within the DAW itself, then they became impulse responses, because it is technically using an impulse, so that is the right technical term, but it's not guitaristic sounding. Yeah. you know, like. But no, it's funny that you mentioned that, man. I haven't thought about that in a long time. Yeah, cab sims. That's what they used to call them back in the day.
So
definitely.
And so you had this like, you know, this high pass trick where basically for each instrument, you would select a hard cutoff of the low end.
Yep.
And everything higher than that frequency would be passing through to your ears. And that just opens up so much headroom
100%.
For everything. Yeah. So, thank you.
Well, dude, all this stuff you're saying is making me so happy because that's exactly what I want my listeners to take in and take away from the videos, because there's so much overwhelm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know, because I experience it even to this day, because now I have companies hitting me up like, oh, check out our plugins. And it's like, I will only review it on my channel if I actually can use it in real life, because a lot of the stuff that's out there, man, is the same crap over and over and over again. It really is, with a different label slapped across the GUI, the GUI.
Yeah,
but no, dude, like, it's funny. The thing that I use to remind myself about the gear, about the overwhelm, is think about this. Like, we were talking about your favorite album, Ride the Lightning, right? Mm-hmm. I don't know the specifics of how they mixed that, but because it was mixed in 1984, I can pretty much guarantee that the dude that mixed it probably only had a handful of effects in his rack behind him, because back then you could only have so many, and that album sounds amazing to this day. And in your computer right now with your stock plugins, you have like 20,000 times more power than they'd had on their console and their basic, rack setup that they had behind them when they mixed Ride the Lightning, and that album's amazing, you know? So that's what I always kind of use to remind myself when I get caught down that endless rabbit hole. Same thing with AmSim, dude. Like, think about it like this. Some of my favorite producers and some of the producers that have created these records that we still listen to this day, they have their favorite go-to amps in the studio. As a matter of fact, when I interned at a studio in college, the producer made a lot of the guitar players play through the same rig. It didn't matter what band was in. He knew that rig sounded right in that room, and a lot of the records were the same guitar sound. But the fact that it was a different band and the guitar player played differently, it had a different vibe, even though it was the same amp, the same rig. So I always kind of try to remember, facts like that when I end up getting a little crazy with the plugins myself. So
yeah, it's true. It's very true. And I've tried to make that comparison to when I make comics or I'm drawing, and I normally draw traditionally, but over the past year I've really embraced going digital, especially with the iPad Pro. And there's a thing with drawing digitally where you can add layer on layer on layer on layer on layer just to tweak things or have things separated so it's a little bit easier in the end. But there's been times where I'm finishing a page and I'm looking and it's like 15 layers, and like one layer and just one layer is like some dude's stubble, and it's like it's just like why did I do that? Like, I just
same concept.
Well, I guess I did it so I can kind of like splash it on there and then erase it without having to worry about erasing any other lines. But it's also like, all right, well, I gotta simplify this,
dude.
But yeah, it's such an obvious thing, I think. And and this is not casting any type of shade to any other YouTubers or anyone who provides mixing tutorials and all that, but yeah, a lot of the stuff they're reviewing and all that, it's the same stuff over and over. Everything's
100%.
trying to be the Fab Filter EQ. Everything's trying to be, mimic a Neve or console or whatever thing it is.
Yeah.
How many 5150 plugins are there? Like, and who does it best?
My God.
So again, I can fall guilty of like buying into like the video of it, but then when it comes down to it, it's like, I'm not gonna buy this. Like, I'm not gonna spend this money. It's like at first I was like, maybe I should get the Fab Filter EQ. Maybe that's why everyone's using it for a reason for the most part. Let me see. And then it's like $300 or some crazy shit like that. And I'm like, I don't need that. It's not $300 good. Like,
But what is it supposed to do? Like, I don't get it. Everybody talks about them, but like, what is supposed to be so amazing about the Fab Filter?
I don't know. I used the stock Reaper EQ.
Yeah, that's all you need.
And I also convinced myself, besides the price convincing me, because that first and foremost, like, I'm not gonna spend a decent guitar's worth money on a plugin.
Yeah. No, I don't blame you.
So it's like, I shouldn't be using that much EQ, first of all. So,
well, yeah, and the thing is to always remember, at least in my opinion, is that like There are well, okay. Let me just say this: the thing that anchors me down to react, it kind of like keeps my feet on the ground when it comes to plugins, is this simple fact that I'm about to reveal right now. My favorite, you've probably heard me talk about him because he's like my favorite metal producer of all time. Andy Sneap is my favorite metal producer of all time. He's done like, I don't know if you're a Killswitch fan. Yeah. He mixed the first 2 Killswitch records. He did Disarm to Descent. He's mixed a bunch of the God, he's done so many, like all of the classic 80s metal bands, because that's what he grew up with. Now he's doing all of those records, like the Judas Priest, Accept, and all that. He's done.
Isn't he playing with Judas
Jeff
Priest
Loomis. Yeah, exactly. He plays in
Yeah.
Judas Priest. But dude, so check this out. So whenever I kind of feel myself getting a little crazy with the plugins thing, right? I'll go back and listen to some old Andy Sneap records from like the mid 2000s. And Andy Sneap always mixed in the box up until 2010. He ended up buying a console, and he admits it's like not first because of the sound, it's because he likes that workflow. And honestly, he has the money for it. Why would he not? He can do whatever the hell he wants. But even before then, he was one of the first mixers that openly admitted, I only use plugins, I only mix in my computer. And back in 2006, there were only so many plugins you could buy. So you had like the Metric Halo channel strip, you had a few of the Waves plugins, pretty much very basic, just like really functional plugins that people kind of like scoff at these days. So whenever I feel myself getting a little wacky, I'll listen to some of those records and they still sound phenomenal to this day. Like just as good as anything coming out today. I'm like, wow, well, he did this with like 5 plugins in 2006. Why am I going to buy 50,000 new plugins that are just going to do the same thing and maybe not even as good? Yeah. That's the way I kind of look at it personally. Like, so, because dude, trust me, I'm tempted myself, like sometimes like when Slate comes out with a new deal, I'm like, oh, maybe I do need the console Slate. Oh, maybe I do need this Clipper plugin, even though I have 10 different Clipper plugins. Yeah. So, but no, I always use the Andy Sneap thing. And also, I'm kind of like a little too old for his generation of metal, but like Joey Sturgis is another good example. Are you a fan of the Joey Sturgis stuff?
I actually took a dive because I think it just had a sale, and a buddy of mine was like, "Hey, Joey Sturgis is having a sale." I'm like, "Oh, I think it was like it was a pretty crazy sale too." And I was looking at a few of them, and I'm like, "Well, I think I want these, but like I couldn't get the. I wanted these, but I want the no. It was Waves. It was Waves plugins. Sorry, but no, Sturgis is like. I know it's good stuff, but yeah, I just haven't I haven't heard anything from his where I'm like, well, I need this version of a compressor, I need this version of a whatever.
The one plugin that he makes that I'm thinking about picking up is the Clipper, because his Clipper, I mean, I've heard, for me, it's got to be something that really makes a difference, and his Clipper just has a certain musical sound to it, at least from what I've heard, and a lot of my favorite mixers use it as well. But no, but are you a fan of Joey Sturgis's like mixes and his bands that he's worked with?
I'm pretty sure I probably like some of the bands he's done. I don't know off the top of my head who he's produced.
Yeah, because exactly, you and I, we grew up in the 90s, but like a lot of the younger kids were like, he did like Attack. I can't think of it. It's so many of those like, Hot Topic bands from the mid 2000s. But what's amazing about Joey Sturgis is that he's a phenomenal producer. Like he invented a sound for the most part in the mid 2000s. But dude, what's crazy is he did this in a garage with this is before he made his own plugins. With like a handful of like, stock Cubase plugins and Waves plugins. That was it. That was all he used. And he's responsible for an entire genre of music when you think about it. So he's another one that I take inspiration from because it's a fact. I mean, like the guy used like 3 different pieces of gear, and he's a well-known producer, like a platinum. I mean, his records are sold in stores and stuff, But yeah, man, that's the thing that kind of keeps me in check with the gear thing. I always kind of remember those examples, and I have a few other ones as well. But because trust me, man, I'm tempted as well. Yeah. Sometimes I get on these kicks where I'm like, oh. Maybe I need this piece of outboard gear, even though I know I don't need it. Maybe I need it. Maybe I don't need it.
Well, yeah. So. Even now, I'm like, all right, like, there's a lot of like great tube screamer, cheap tube screamer pedals. Like, what if I did that instead of like a plug-in one? Like, it's just like, why? It's making things more complicated for myself, and I'm really trying to like arrange and acquire plugins. Mostly free that I can find that are stable, first of all,
Oh yeah, that's a big one, man.
And
That's a big one.
if they're not, then try to find ones that are reasonably priced or on sale that do the thing I
Yeah.
want them to do, and I don't have to mess with them constantly.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh yeah.
there's a saturation plugin, a limiter that I liked, was called Ferric TDS. It was free, but it's unstable as hell. Like, if I put it in, if I keep it in my master bus, like, there's times where it just causes my audio just to die. Like, I have to like restart my whole program, take it off, and then like because I like to, when I start mixing, I like to have the couple, whatever I'm going to have in the master bus there while I'm mixing, because I want to hear as close to the end result as possible.
Yeah, it's part of the mix. You want to mix through it. Yeah.
I know everyone has their own techniques and all that, and obviously I'm still learning and all that. And I have a mix. Hopefully, make it one into your videos for your submitted mixes, so you can tear me apart a little bit. So.
Oh, that's awesome, man! Did you send it?
Yeah, I sent it. It's probably might be from the Comics Coffee Metal email, not my personal email.
Oh, I can't wait to hear it, dude. I'm pumped. I'm working, dude. It's funny.
I love those videos too. The why am I blanking? The submitted mixes.
The mix ones?
CSM, awesome. Is it? The abbreviation?
I think that's it, yeah. It's funny, dude. It's one of those things where, like, people have been asking me for, like, a year, and I'm like, yeah, I'll do it, yeah. And then I'm like, let me just actually do this, and I'm loving it. It's so much fun.
What I like about how you do them, as opposed to how some other producers do them, is, their individual shticks aside, you give a lot of really helpful notes. And if you're like,
oh, good.
Hey, this sounds good, but here's what I would do, or it's very constructive, and obviously if it was trash or something, you're not going to ream them out or anything like that. You can be like, here's what I would do here, here's what it sounds, and also people kind of tell you, like, I'm having trouble with this, I'm having,
that's
and you've had some amazing sounding mixes. I'm like, why is, like, this sounds like it should be on the record, like.
Dude, I've been blown away, man. Some people have sent me stuff. I'm like, holy crap! Like legit.
Like, can you? Like, how did you do this?
Yeah, dude. Like, well, the thing is, the reason why I kind of hesitated doing this in the first place is because I'm a firm believer in art, and I'm sure we all know this, but like, art is really subjective. Yeah. So like, when people ask me like, how do I make this better? That's really vague because. Dude, even just as an example, not to go on a tangent, but like, I don't do a lot. I'm so busy mixing, and especially now that I do YouTube, that a lot of my recording, I have another producer do the recording, the actual recording for me.
Yeah.
Great guy. His name is Ben Karras. Phenomenal, talented violinist. His band is actually really successful. He's in a band called Thank You Scientists, and they're always touring and stuff. But he and I have completely different opinions on production. So like, I grew up with like Metallica. Like that's where I always go because that's just part of that's what I grew up with. He grew up with like, really dingy, like dirty black metal sounding productions, like old, I don't even know a lot of these bands like Mayhem. I mean, I know them obviously, but like stuff that literally sounds like you took an iPhone and stuck it in a pillow and threw it in a corner of the room, and like he likes it. And there's nothing wrong with that. But what's interesting is that like, when we work on projects together, it's like, we might butt heads because if he's recording it and I'm mixing it, he'll give me mixed notes. I'm like, why would you want it to sound like this? So anyway, the point of me saying that is that like, I hesitated to do that series because I feel uncomfortable telling someone, oh, this snare doesn't sound right, because that's just my opinion. So what I like to do is have people tell me what they're struggling with. So that way, if they say to me, okay, I want my guitars to sound clearer, I have a clear vision of what they want to accomplish, and then I could give my feedback, Or like, for example, a good one is like, one kid was like, oh, I want my snare drum to sound more like some band. And then he sent me a reference, and it's like, dude, that's a completely different snare sound. Like you can't make your snare sound like that unless you swap the sample out, But people, trust me, and I was there too when I was younger. Like, I used to think you could just EQ your way to any sound in the world. It doesn't work like that. You need to get the source a certain way if you want that kind of sound. So, but I'm glad you're digging the series, man. It's turned into something that I really enjoy, and like I was kind of skeptical at first, but now it's like one of my favorite things. So
I think you're doing it right. I think you're doing it well. Like, awesome. Like I said, a lot of other YouTubers, like, they'll critique people, submitted songs and stuff like that, and a lot of it's for fun, I'm sure. Yeah. But it seems like yours is the one that treats it like you're legitimately trying to make sure these people have the best.
Awesome.
You're coming at it from like a producer's angle. It's like, well, it's your song. What what do you need this to do that it's not doing?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
And
good, man.
I
I'm
don't
glad
know.
I'm getting that
I don't
across
know
because
if I
that was
put
my
down
goal.
what I was struggling with on there, so I might have to follow up on that email. But
Yeah, let me
yeah,
know. Let me know what it
yeah.
is, because the more specific, the better. But that's awesome, dude. I'm really happy to hear that. Thank you. I
No,
appreciate
yeah,
that.
it's again, it's just one more of those things where it's solidified. Like, yeah, I really want to get you on and talk to you about this kind of stuff because that kind of like almost positive reinforcement to people, like it,
Yeah.
just hearing a lot of the, like I said, some of the mixes in there, even some of the ones that weren't there yet, like some of the songs are like, this sounds really cool, like
Yeah.
so hopefully that person's gonna like come back with an even stronger mix, and then we all have something new to jam out to. Like, it's just,
Hell yeah.
but yeah, it's crazy.
As they say, a rising tide, was it rising tide lifts all ships?
Yeah,
That's why I
yeah,
always kind of look
rising
at it,
tide,
you
yeah,
know?
rising tide lifts all ships. So
True.
before we have to wrap up and all that, I always like to, I'm always fascinated by what people have in terms of their own gear, in terms of guitars and all that. Because speaking to artists, a lot of the rabbit holes other artists go down, or people who are interested in art and all that, are like, oh, what pen do you use? What paper do you use? What kind of nibs or brushes do you use? And I've had that conversation so many times. I want to know. I'm like, what's your go-to guitar? What's your favorite strings? What's your favorite pickups? Like, what's that for me? That's the info I want to know whenever I'm talking to
Yeah.
another comic person who's also a musician.
Yeah.
But now that I'm talking to an actual music,
An actual
an
music
actual
guy.
music guy. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
curious. I know you're busy doing the recording and all that, but you do you have like a ton of guitars at home, or do you just have like a few mainstays,
Yes.
or so?
Dude, well, growing up, I worked at a music store as a teenager for like a decade. So I was a guitar buying nut job for many, many years. I drove my parents insane, dude. I had guitars in my dining room, the guitars in my basement. The only good thing I could say is I stopped buying guitars about 10 years ago, just because recording is a whole other thing that you could spend money on.
A different money pit, yeah.
Different money pit. But no, I have my, I have a few nice ones. Like I have a Gibson, I think it's an ES 135, because I'm also into jazz a little. And when I was a teenager, I got really into it. So I have like a few different arch tops. But my prized possession would be the 1956 Gibson ES. I think it's an ES 135. I always forget the model. From the 50s. It's old,
nice.
old vintage guitar. So that's probably. I should really do a YouTube video on that one day. But I felt like I've never. It's funny. I always forget that I actually play guitar. I'm so busy talking about technical stuff. With
there's a couple of videos where like you're playing a guitar. I'm like, oh, he plays guitar too. Like, I didn't know if you're just a mixer, or you're just someone who's did sound and all that. So
yeah, I started out like everyone else, wanted to be a band guy, and the recording thing just kind of took it over. But it worked out. But yeah, so that would be my main prized possession, I would say, as far as the most valuable guitar I own. But my second favorite would be I have a custom Warmouth 7-string. That I custom made 11 years ago. It was 2009, and it's got an ebony board. I love it, man. It's an ebony board, mahogany body, which is kind of rare for that style of guitar, because it's a typical Floyd Rose. The thing I like about it is they did a custom neck profile, so it's really thin for a 7-strings. I hate how 7-strings usually feel like baseball bats, and this one feels almost like a 6-string. It's really
nice.
It's just really nice, and the playability is amazing. And it's got really big frets, so 6,100 frets. And I'm a passive. Me personally, I prefer passive pickups. So I've got a 59 in the neck, and I have a Duncan distortion in the bridge. And that I haven't jumped on the hype train yet with all. I know like there's like the bare knuckle pickups and this, that, and the other thing. For me, as long as they're passive and they sound good, that's all that really matters. I'm not that picky,
No, that perfect answer. Yeah, I like passive pickups myself. And the bare knuckle stuff and all that. They sound great from the demos I hear and all that. But I'm like, I don't know. A friend he actually. I'm not like a Strat shape type guy. But he had a Jackson Dinky, like one of the $200-$300 ones. The entry level one or whatever. But he also bought a set of Invaders. And
oh, dude, that I gotta say that those I have a couple invaders in some of my older guitars, but I was all about those when I was a kid. But what were you saying?
yeah,
Sorry.
well, no, well, so he's like because he just got back into playing guitar and he's buying stuff. He's like, yeah, I wanted like a metal guitar, but like I realized I didn't want a metal guitar. So he's like, do you want to buy this Jackson and these invaders from me? I'll give you a real good deal. I'm like, well, I have a decent amount of guitars already. I'm like, well, I'm running out of space. I'd have to sell it to the missus. What's the deal? And he's like, for both of them, $50. And I'm like, what? Yeah, exactly. I'm like, what? And he's like,
I'd take it.
And now I have a Jackson Dinky with an Invader, and that thing sounds fucking wicked. Like,
dude, the Invaders don't get. Do people talk about those pickups anymore?
No, the only person who really talks about him is like Fluff, and that's because he's like a big he was a big Blink-182 fan. And he talks about using them and all, but and he like backs them off real big too. But like yeah, once I put him in that cheaper Jackson,
they're great.
I'm like, this thing's a fucking chug machine, man. So that
yeah. No, I'm sorry. What were you saying?
I'm like, why are like, because I initially bought a dime bucker many years ago because when I first got back into playing guitars, I bought a John 5 Squire. And
nice.
That thing is heavy. Like it's heavier than some Les Pauls I've picked up. Like it's ridiculously heavy.
Oh, physically
yeah,
heavy.
It is.
Like it's physically.
And so, and I bought it like without playing it or whatever. I just I wanted a telly shape. I wanted, and I liked how this one looked.
Yeah.
So yeah, I got it, and I threw a dime bucker in there, and that was my go-to for years.
Nice.
And like I mentioned, I got the Gojira one, and all that. But yeah, so I thought the dime bucker was like, okay, this is like the ultimate. Like, I'm not gonna go with a active pickup, which you have to use a battery and all that stuff, and especially have your guitar like maimed or cut out and install the battery in most cases. Now some come with like USB plugs to charge them.
Oh, it's crazy now, dude. It's almost overwhelming, dude. Yeah. Like there's so many options. Like that's why I think that's one of the reasons why I don't buy guitars anymore, because I don't even know what to pick.
Yeah.
It's insane. You know,
I was joking because before the whole pandemic started, my wife and I were kind of having a conversation. She's like, how many guitars do you think you want or you need? And I'm like, well, and she's heard me go through the spiel of like, each one does something different. Like a Strat doesn't sound like a Tele, and
it's true though.
And a SG with P90s doesn't sound like a Les Paul with humbucker. It's all. Yeah. I'm like one of each, but I'm like seriously, I don't know. And then of course in the past year I've acquired 4.
Oh wow.
One was at Jackson. The second was she bought me one of those the cheap $90 Glary Tellies.
I don't know if I've seen
those. They're all over. Yeah, just Glary is the brand. It's a knockoff brand, and they're all over YouTube. And it's contrasted to my John 5 Telly. This thing weighs like, I'm pretty sure there's newborn kittens that weigh more than this thing. But it was reasonably well made. It was $90. It sounds like a Telly. A few upgrades, and it's going to be a pretty nice, little twangy kind of rock guitar. And then I have a couple builds. So I got a pretty good Flying V build going that I'm waiting for some electronics on. And then I had this old, I don't know if you know this brand, Aria Pro 2.
I've heard of them. Yeah, one of my friends is a fan.
It was a very 90s Warlocky looking guitar, and I had bought, it was my first humbucker guitar many years ago, and if I had any sense back then, I would have been like, oh, this only needs some hardware upgrades and like some new pots. But I'm like, this thing's busted. Like, I don't know what's wrong with this thing.
Yeah.
So like I maimed the crap out of this thing over so many years, and then it was just like literally sitting in my garage, like with like divots and all this crap in it. And then one day I just like spray painted it like hot red for no particular reason. And then it sat for a couple more years. And then I was working on this V, and then I sanded that one down, and it looked really wicked. And if you get a chance, I put a picture of it up on my Instagram, and I'm like, okay, this thing needs to be like a super budget, just death machine. Like it just, I got these really cheap red Invader knockoff pickups from for like $20 off of Amazon. Uh, they just look like Invaders, but they're red, and it matches the aesthetic.
Oh, that's cool. That's fucking cool.
I can't wait to get this thing fully assembled because it's gonna sound like crap, but it's supposed to. It's supposed to sound like crap. Like, so when I do my black metal, recorded like an iPhone thrown in a pillow, this is the guitar for that.
Dude, that's awesome, man. I love stuff like that.
But yeah.
Speaking of that, have you seen this? I don't remember his YouTube channel. I just came across some of his videos. You probably know who I'm talking about. There's some newer channel, I think it's newer, where this kid, like, he salvages old cheapo, like, Jacksons and ESPs and LTDs from, like, the 80s and 90s, but pimps them out. Have you seen this?
Are you talking about, like, Trash to Thrash?
Fuck, I think that's it.
I've seen those. He does like some crackle stuff and like just crazy paint jobs on them.
Dude.
Yeah.
Really cool stuff. Really cool.
Yeah, I've kind of like, man, if I had the time, I would love just to go just go to thrift shops, buy these old beat up nasty guitars or whatever.
Yeah.
Spend $50 on parts on Amazon to get some decent like whatever Music Lily brand or whatever Wilkinson or whatever cheapo brand they have, just to make it up to playable, and then make them look cool and like boom, and just do that for like a hobby or something like that. But cheap guitars have gotten so good though. These like
yeah, dude, it wasn't like that in the 90s.
Oh no, not in the slightest. Like I said, this $90 glary telly I got, like it's got a few imperfections here and there, but overall the frets were fine. None of them buzzed. No weird fret ends. The neck was fine. The tuners are crap. That's fine. The pickups are kind of weak. That's fine. Those are all easily replaceable. Plastic nut, easily replaceable. But yeah, it's insane. So, but then I'm finding myself like, wow, I have so many guitars now. I'm kind of giving myself the option paralysis with that too, because I have like, guitars and basses, and even though I'm like, they do different things, it's like, well, do they?
Dude, the other thing with me with having so many guitars that's annoying is maintaining them.
Yeah, that's another thing too.
Like, and
definitely.
Yeah, dude, like when I was a kid working at the music store, I did a lot of the guitar repairs, so I know how to do a setup, but like even knowing how to do all that stuff, like I have 5 7-strings, I think. I'm mainly a 7-string guy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like one of those weirdos that actually was playing them in the 90s before. It's not another side tangent here. It was interesting. In the 90s, 7-strings became popular with Korn and Fear Factory in the late 90s. And dude, they like died. Like when Killswitch came out and all that, like nobody gave a crap. Like it went from you couldn't buy 7-strings to like you couldn't give them away. And then with Gen, they became popular again. So, but where was I going with this? But anyway, so I have a handful of 7-strings still to this day, and whenever I gotta break one out, like the neck is all I gotta readjust the neck. The frets all have to be cleaned up. It's like, oh my god, this is expensive. It's like every time, and I don't get to play as much as I used to.
You want to spend a half hour twiddling with it before you get the chance to play.
Oh, dude, or more. Yeah, or more. I first of all have to get the new strings because the strings are all like, there's all like shot. Because like when I play, it's funny. My boss back in the day, the owner of the store, he wouldn't let me play the guitars because I have like really acidic sweat. So like when I was a teenager, I guess when your hormones are going crazy, like I would ruin every guitar in the shop because of my. And even though I'm way better now, I'm an adult now, but like even to this day, like if I take my guitar and play the crap out of it for a few weeks and then keep it in its case, in 6 months I gotta change the strings. Like I can't pick up that guitar and record with it. It needs a whole setup. So that's what's annoying about having a lot of guitars for me. Maybe it's not like that for everybody, but for me, that's the annoyance.
Yeah, definitely. It's I have 4 basses, and the basses usually are what giving me trouble. It's like, ugh, it's been like 3 months since I played this bass. The temperature's changed drastically. The humidity's changed drastically. I need to tweak the neck. Okay, let me adjust this. And oh god. And then before you know it, I'm like, I've spent way too much time dicking around with this. I have to move on.
Yeah, dude. So when I see these guys like Ola England and like how I guess they have guys that just maintain their guitars or something. I don't know. It's crazy.
Yeah, I'm well, he had that series. He has that series where he like sets up one of his guitars and changes it and plays it and talks about it. Yeah,
Really?
I think it's like mega.
Oh, interesting.
He was mainly doing it with like special guitars, mainly like his dime bag collection and stuff like that. And but
That's cool.
yeah, it's like it's weird when I feel like one day it's like I could spend a good Saturday changing strings, polishing,
Easily.
Oiling up fretboards, cleaning it, spraying some air in some pots and stuff like that, just to make sure everything's working all right.
The steel wool. Do you use the steel wool to clean the frets?
No, I haven't. I'm terrible at cleaning the frets, to be honest. But I got a whole kit now, so now when it's time for me to do it, I'm ready to do it. But I can sympathize with your acidic sweat because I have really oily hands. So
okay.
On the plus side, when I got this Galeri, the neck was unfinished, and I'm like, oh, okay, I'm gonna take some steel wool to it, or just like a real light sandpaper, and it'll feel nice and smooth. But I just ended up playing it for a week, and my hands are so oily, it's smooth as butter.
you sealed the neck?
I just
sealed?
It's my own custom seal blend on there, I guess.
That's awesome.
As disgusting as it. So now, if I can hand this to my friend, like, that's my oil of that neck. Enjoy.
It's got your DNA in it,
buddy.
Awesome,
man. It's been a blast talking to you. We even get to talking about your love of horror and the whole aesthetic of your channel with the retro VHS and all that. And I'd love to talk about it if you have a little bit more time. If not, I'm definitely going to have to ask you to come back at another time.
Yeah, dude, whatever. Let me know. I could go on and on. So if you ever need to have me back, I would love to come back. 100%.
Awesome. Yeah, it was like I said, I'm trying to keep it a little bit less time. I find more people are apt to listen, and I want people to hear this. I want people to get hip to you because I know a few musicians who listen to this podcast, and I think they would definitely benefit from hearing the nuggets of wisdom you pass down and all that. And it's just a blast having you on, and I'm definitely gonna have to have you come back on in a few months, and we'll
100%. I'm can't wait.
I'm just October, man.
Sounds like a plan.
Time for horror time. Like, who better to have on, right?
Dude, if you get me started with horror, we'll be here 48 hours in a row. Literally, I can go on and on and on. So yeah, that sounds like a plan.
I have a good set of people who are all just super in love with horror movies. So I think I got my October scheduling programming set.
I'm pumped, dude. Can't wait to hear it.
So again, I had a total blast talking to you. So Bobby, if you let everybody know where they can find you on social media, YouTube, if you got anything specific to pimp out, let's do it right now.
Best place to find me, super simple, youtube.com/frightboxrecording. And you can find everything else from there. Super straightforward.
There you go. Super. Yep. I like it when it's nice and straightforward.
Yeah, because I could say the website, but then it's like, oh yeah, then it's just too much. But the great thing about YouTube is a centralized location, and then within the video's description, you can find the YouTubes and the Instagrams and the website and all that.
Easy peasy.
So youtube.com/frightboxrecording.
There you go. All right, man. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having me on, man. I really enjoyed this. This is a lot of fun.
Me too, man.
Awesome. Thanks, Don.
Thank you for listening to the Comics Coffee Metal Podcast. Please be sure to come back next week when I am talking to artist of Barbarian Lord and Lake of Fire, Matt Smith.